Welcome, everybody. My name is Richard C. Wilson, and we have with me here today Kristin Luck from ScaleHouse. Welcome, Kristin.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Sure. So what does ScaleHouse do?
We are a growth strategy and M&A advisory firm. So we're both a combination of serial entrepreneurs and investment bankers that work with founders, private equity firms, family offices to either help scale their companies or identify opportunities for M&A within their categories. And we work primarily within marketing, tech, and services and emerging consumer packaged goods, which also includes cannabis.
Okay, so if there was a private equity fund in the family office club that's really good at sourcing deals and negotiating deals and closing deals, you guys could help as almost like an operating partner to help scale things to the next level. Is that right?
For sure, yeah. We work both as short-term consultants to help integrate newly acquired companies, and also as fractional, head of sales, head of marketing, head of finance, head of product.
Okay, great. So then single-family offices, sometimes act like private equity groups. I'm guessing if they feel like, hey, can we pull off this direct investment strategy ourselves, or should we just go through a fund? Obviously they could supplement with their own internal staff, but then work with a firm like yours to kind of de-risk missing some low-hanging fruit or some staffing changes maybe.
For sure, yeah. And actually one of the partners in the firm, Mike Pisani, actually ran a family office before he started working with me at ScaleHouse. So we've got a lot of family office experience. I'm a founder myself, so I've scaled and sold 3 different firms to private equity firms and one to a family office. So we've got a lot of firsthand experience in the field.
Yeah, it sounds like it. That's great. Awesome. Well, I know that's a big issue, a big challenge for single family offices especially, is making sure that they're well equipped enough staff-wise. So I can see the value there. So what is the kind of value add that's really made your firm successful to this point? It sounds like you've developed a pretty good team and probably worked with a lot of clients. So what's been at the core of all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, a lot of consulting firms or growth strategy firms are run by people that haven't actually been in the trenches themselves. So, the fact that we have serial entrepreneurs that have had successful exits, myself included, the fact that Mike's actually worked and ran a family office before. Both Mike and I have our investment banking licenses. So we're licensed through Oberon Securities in New York. So we've actually run M&A transactions and continue to do so. I think that's a real differentiator for us.
Yeah, for sure. Usually it's just they've got a straight hourly rate, or they came from KPMG, forensic accounting due diligence, or, risk controls world, and they're going to help analyze what's going on and do deep analysis. But it seems like you guys have real scaling experience. Most people haven't sold one company to a private equity fund. So congrats on that. That's excellent.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. 3. So yeah, I've got a good record. Yeah, I mean, I think that, the differentiator for us is that we tend to go deep. We don't really work on an hourly rate. We're on anywhere from 3 to 12-month contracts. I think my longest running one right now is about 3.5 years that I've been working with the executive team and family office. So yeah, we have a tendency to go deep, and we're functional operators is the other difference. We're not just going to do research analysis and then leave you to execute. We work deeply, with the day-to-day teams to make sure that the strategies that we've outlined can actually be implemented. That's a big move for a lot of folks.
Yeah, it might change the recommendation if you have to implement it yourself.
For sure. For sure.
Yeah. So what's the number one most overlooked activity you think when it comes to scaling a company? I'm sure some people listening here are trying to scale their own company, and others are trying to decide whether they need your help or not. But what's often overlooked?
Well, no one's going to like this answer, but it's marketing. Nobody, I think that marketing is one of the most underutilized and misunderstood functions of company growth. We have a tendency, I think, to discount the technical skill that's needed to market in this environment. And so because of that, it's usually the lowest skilled person that goes into that role. It's like, we've got this executive, like, where are we going to put them? Oh, let's make them the head of marketing, which is like the absolute wrong thing to do. Or, when budgets get caught, it's the first thing to go. And the truth of the matter is, like, marketing makes sales 1,000 times easier. You know, marketing's whole role is lead generation and growth. So
Right.
it's the, you know, when you don't have a good marketing engine, it makes the sale and scaling process infinitely harder.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with that more. I think the only reason that we exist has been my study, people like Jay Abraham and Dan Kennedy, and I'm friends with Joe Polish and Dean Jackson, and studied a lot of direct response with Ogilvy and John Carlton and all those types of people. And I feel like nobody else in the family office space has really studied those things, and it makes my team's life easier when you can reverse that complaint of we don't have enough leads, or we don't like having to call people cold, to we have too many leads and it's overwhelming and we need to hire someone else. That's the difference of having good marketing or not, right?
For sure. And that's the best possible scenario for any salesperson to, to walk into. And I will say that most of the companies that I work with where we are implementing marketing strategies, they very rarely have to cold call, if ever. They usually have too many leads. So, and then, that's also the role of a good, nurturing campaign. I don't know if you've read any of Jonah Berger's books, but he's one of my favorites. He's a Wharton professor, and he talks about a lot about influencers and, how to make your product and service more, appealing to influencers. And I think a lot of times too, we forget about how influential our existing clients can be and bringing new clients to the door. And so we kind of, we really have a two-pronged strategy when it comes to marketing, which is not only about demand generation, but how do we keep existing clients engaged and growing?
Right. Yeah, totally makes sense. I appreciate you mentioning that. And I guess, what are some like 2 or 3 pieces of advice you could leave us with for today when it comes to scaling a company, maybe especially during, a pandemic or some sort of other challenging time?
Yeah, it's tough right now for sure for many folks. What I'm really encouraging companies to do is like really take a look at your product portfolio and if you need to pivot quickly. I think a lot of the mistakes that we see companies making that are struggling now are those that when the pandemic hit, they kind of waited to see what was going to happen, and they didn't move fast enough. They didn't furlough staff, or they didn't look at their products and say, maybe in 3 months I'm not going to be able to have this product anymore, or maybe we won't be able to do face-to-face sales. So the first is, do you need to pivot, and can you do it quickly and be decisive about it? So get out of the deer of the headlights phase. The second, for sure, is marketing. It's not a time to go silent, and I feel like the brands that are doing really well are the ones that keep communicating. And there's lots of inexpensive ways to do marketing. I think that many times we see that a lot of folks are very reliant on conferences and events. And those are really challenging these days. In fact, I just wrote a blog post yesterday about how to work an online event, but we're all kind of having Zoom fatigue and online networking fatigue. And so how can you make those connections more meaningful? And then lastly, to the point that we were just talking about, it can be very, very hard, particularly if you're in a software or some kind of licensed vertical where you're trying to sell a recurring revenue product. It can be very challenging to bring new clients on right now because folks are really risk adverse, and it's very hard for people to make behavioral change right now. And so I'm really, encouraging people to double down on their existing client communication. How can you grow existing client accounts and make those relationships more impactful, and to grow those during this time if you're struggling to bring new clients in?
Right. Makes sense. Yeah. And connected to everything you're saying, I found that when you have really good marketing and lead gen, then your salespeople who are A players are less likely to leave, and they just appreciate it because they know their skills are best used actually selling, not trying to find someone to sell. And so it just maximizes their earnings and makes it less painful of an existence than maybe the last company they were with. So they tend to be more loyal through a challenging time when you're doing what you're saying, because otherwise you might lose revenue even more if you didn't do marketing. And you might also lose your A-player salespeople that need to go somewhere where they can use their skill set, right?
Absolutely. I think too, people think that you have to spend a lot of money to market, and I don't think that's the case at all. I think, for folks that have not been doing content marketing, there's a game of catch up that they have to do. And it takes, you kind of have to balance short-term strategies with long-term strategies. So you might have to do some short-term paid activities to market. but then ideally you would have a content strategy that would be serving as a lead gen engine in the background.
Right. Great. Awesome. Well, I could tell we could talk for a while longer about this, but we're trying to make this a relatively short interview to give people an introduction to who you are and what ScaleHouse does. So I know your website is scalehouse.consulting. Is there anywhere else someone should go to get in touch with you or to talk about working with you directly?
Yeah, I mean, that's the best portal is our website. And we've got a whole page on family office relationships and private equity firms, how we typically work with those folks. And then of course you can reach out to us on LinkedIn. We've got a company page there, and I'm on LinkedIn as well.
Okay, great. Well, I'm sure that we'll have some connections for you over time, just because we're always speaking to families acquiring companies, and it seems like what you do is highly relevant, and I get it. So appreciate your time here today. I'm happy to keep in touch.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kristin. Take care.
Okay.